Rainer, great to see you again. Thanks for taking the time to chat. First of all, congratulations on becoming one of the top 10 EMS companies in Europe. It's a pretty meteoric and pretty fast rise. What I wanted to do was explore some of the ingredients that helped achieve that. And I think to do that, part of it is the team that you brought together with the original vision, but part of it is the way that was funded. Let's kind of wind back a bit. Give me a little bit of Rainer's journey to KATEK and what kind of led you to your arrival in the EMS industry.
Yeah, I mean, Phil, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. It's always in those times a pleasure to speak more about the strategic topics in our industry and the drivers, and not always about the shortage. So thank you very much for this. And yeah, so basically, I mean, I started my career, at one of the big giants, of the European industry, which is Siemens. And I worked many years for Siemens, and as you know, Siemens, is a leading player in much of the, power generation, healthcare, and at this point of time, it was also IT, by the way, something that has disappeared. But I mean, the interesting thing is that also in those early days of my career, I understood that, let me say, the basic of all of this. The foundation was electronics, hardware, and software. And of course, it's always, a question of make or buy. What do I do on my own? What do I do in the outsource, near source? But basically, it was all about electronics in different markets. So it was, to me, it was relatively natural, I would say, that many years later, after many, let me say, career steps in the telecommunications, like as CEO for British Telecom in Germany and Austria, or a leading, a startup and making it big, like Enphone in the unified communication as a service industry. I mean, this was all interesting to understand the dynamics in growth industries as well as in mature industries, and to understand the difference on how small, fast-growing companies are operating and how big industrial conglomerates are operating. So I think this brought me into the perfect position that when in August 2018, Klaus Weinmann, the founder of Kencom, one of the big IT service providers in Europe, asked me to have a conversation about the electronics markets. I mean, he and I, we were able to put all the dots together, and which was about, I mean, how's the market standing today? What will most probably happen within the next 10 years, and how can we take advantage of this and maybe build a player which can play a major role in this market, at least in Europe, but in the second or third step, then even on a global kind of scale. So this was the foundation. So Prime Pulse, which is the family office of two very successful families, Klaus Weinmann from Kencom and the Kobers from Alco, they, I would say, by chance, managed to acquire a company in the end of 2017, which was the KATEK Group. And this was more, I would say, out of friendship, because KATEK was in deep trouble economically. And they acquired this company, and they did everything in order, to make it successful again. And then they were just, on this path to make it successful again, to restructure it. And then in summer 2018, there was the opportunity to acquire the electronics company or daughter of the KATEK Group. They were doing antennas and all those kind of things, and satellites. And then Klaus, and he's a very clever strategist, Klaus said, if we do this, I mean, we need a strategy. It's not just that we acquire now the second electronics company. I mean, there must be something more behind, you know, just doing, you know, pearl of strings of electronics companies. And this was exactly the inflection point where we sat together and discussed, you know, our views on this industry. And what we found was that the characteristics of this industry were very, very similar to the IT services company, IT services company landscape, something like, you know, 20, 30 years ago, more 30 years even, which was an extremely fragmented market, many, many small players, family companies, etc. So several thousand companies in Europe. Many of them being heavily dependent from 2 or 3 customers. They are only surviving because of the low interest rates. Mm-hmm. And many of them also have succession problems because it was kind of a, you know, the father or the grandfather even, they founded it, you know, and they were just delivering electronics, I mean, to one of the bigger Mittelstands companies nearby, you know, around the same church. So this was, you know, the beginning of the electronics industry, but nothing had really changed since then. And what we also found is that that there was a big and bigger dependence of the European companies. I mean all the export, you know, world masters and hidden champions from electronics. I mean, electronics is becoming more and more complicated, and you need a lot of innovation if you want to keep pace there. But at the same time, you know, let me say the electronics become more and more in terms of the added value in each and every product and system and solution. So while the importance of electronics, I mean, is growing or even exploding due to IoT and all the things during the last you know, couple of years, there's still an absolutely inadequate landscape of electronics partners for the entire industry. And there are only very, very few European companies which are, you know, capable to serve all the European players, you know, in an adequate way with electronics know-how. When I'm saying electronics know-how, it's not only the production of electronics components, so the classical PCBA. I mean, that's one part of it. It's an important part. But much more. But it's just one part. So, so what we thought is, I mean, let's maybe do the same what happened in the IT services industries, you know, 2 or 3 decades before. Let's consolidate the market, and let's offer to those European companies, let's offer them that we are building, I mean, a strong, at least number 2 in Germany, and maybe, you know, one of the top 5 or top 10 or top 3 companies in Europe. Being able to help them not also become in this industry 100% dependent from Asian and US players. Because, I mean, if the know-how, like we saw with the semiconductor, in the semiconductor area or in the PCB area, if more and more know-how is going there and electronics becoming more and more important, then we will have crisis meetings and sessions in 10 years saying, how can we bring this industry back? And now it's still not too late. So we can do something to be more or less independent, you know, with this industry, having the know-how, having the people, having the engineers, and also having the production capabilities here. So this was basically the strategy. This was a you know, half-hour meeting. I mean, it sounds like much more complicated. It was a half-hour meeting in August 2018. And then Klaus and I, we were, you know, absolutely aligned to say, let's do something out of it, acquire this Kathrein Electronics daughter, and then let's establish, let's found KATEK SE as a new company, and let's make something happen. And the vision was, Phil, the vision was that within 5 years, we will do then an IPO in order to nurture the future growth. And you know, in 5 years, we will go to something like €500 million of turnover. So this was original plan where everything started, and then we start in January 2019.
Yeah, so you start in January 2019. You've already achieved your 5-year plan, which is which is pretty amazing. Tell me a bit about that kind of starting point. What was your personal vision for how you would run the business? What kind of CEO did you want to be at that point?
Yeah, I mean, basically, you know, when we started in January 19 with KATEK SE, we had a fully integrated, we had Steka, which was up and running, but still not in the best shape. We had the electronics daughter of Kathrein, with factories in Grassau in Bavaria and in Hungary, and we were just about to finalize the negotiations with Elektrotechnik Lauter. So I was the first employee of KATEK SE. So there was nobody, no CFO, no chief sales officer, absolutely nobody. And I mean, when I looked into the mechanics and how the industry worked, etc., I mean, I was very clear. My number two shouldn't be, you know, the CFO, or shouldn't be, you know, an assistant. I still don't have an assistant, by the way. You know, I decided the number two employee of KATEK SE should be our global head of procurement, because that's absolutely crucial in our industry. And you know, there was one very smart guy, you know, very young Swiss guy, who sent me in, you know, his CV, because he read something about the foundation of KATEK SE, and he was working for one of our competitors. By the way, one of our competitors you already mentioned earlier in our, you know, pre-conversation. And you know, he said, I love the idea of, let me say, change the industry in Europe. Yeah. I mean, I don't know where this is going to, but I want to be part of it. Yeah. And you know, I had, you know, 2 talks with him, and then we hired Christoph. And Christoph is still our director of you know, global procurement, and is now steering us through the, you know, rough
through the crisis. Yeah. Yeah, he's working very hard at the moment.
Exactly, he's very hard and very successful. He's never giving up. He's never giving up. Exactly.
And when you looked at the industry at that very early point, and yeah, I guess you were looking at it from initially a European point of view, but you were looking at it globally as well, and understanding what was going on. Did you say, you know, there's not really anything there I want to emulate? We'll kind of start with a blank sheet of paper and design our business there? Or did you look at elements and say, you know, I kind of like what these companies have done? Or, you know, was it just tear up the rule book and start again?
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, I had a lot of conversations with other, let me say, CEOs also in our industry, not only Germans, Europeans, but also on a global basis. You know, I tried to understand the dynamics. I, you know, talked with a lot of top customers, and there, you know, one of my beliefs from the very beginning was, you know, we cannot just build another, like me say, Zollner or something like that. That doesn't make sense. I mean, of course, this could be successful, but then we would ever be, you know, the second best Zollner. I mean, this could not be the vision. Okay. That's, I mean, benchmarking is good, but only with benchmarking you're never becoming the best one. Yeah. So that's laying in the nature of it. So we decided to do this, you know, in another way. So not to say we are becoming, you know, even bigger Zollner, or we are becoming something like Siemens or whatever. We were saying, I mean, look. One of the reasons why our customers today, our legacy customers, are loving to work with us and our predecessor companies is that we are very fast, that we are very flexible, that we are close to the markets, that we can, you know, take even important and difficult decisions within one working day. I mean, that that the responsible managing directors who know the business and the industry they are in, that they are very approachable, that you can ring them, you know, days and nights if you have a problem. Yeah. I mean, this is something like if you are serving the European Mittelstand, which is still with, you know, 90% our main customer focus. I mean, then you also act like Mittelstand, so that they think you are, you know, kind of the same animal.
Yes. Yeah.
So, so we said, let's do it this way, that we keep the entrepreneurial spirit of the entities, and then focus on very few key, let me say, capabilities and strategic elements which should be unified, or let me say aligned, you know, between the group members. And I was always saying, you know, as long as I'm the CEO of this company, the headquarters will never exceed 10 people.
Right.
Never. So, and we are at 7 right now. So I mean, we are doing more than 500 million of revenues, but in the headquarters we have you know, less than 10 people, and that's still the benchmark. Because this means, and that's, you know, back to your second question. That means that, I mean, I said we need people there for the key strategic pillars, which are not defining their ego based on the title, based on the org chart, and, you know, all this kind of people you find in the big companies. You need people who are motivated by getting things done together with others. And that's exactly what's happened. That's our chief sales officer, that's our chief procurement officer, that's Mark, who's leading operations, that's even our CFO. I mean, they are all people, they love to work with the operational people in the units, and they never forget that the operational responsibility and the P&L is within the units, within the entities.
And it remains
the reason why I would say 90% of the former managing directors, you know, of the companies which we've been acquiring over the, you know, last couple of years, are still in the same position, or they are doing something else, maybe on group level. So because they feel comfortable here, because it's still entrepreneurial, and they are not just a number in a 7 hierarchical kind of conglomerate. Okay.
Yeah, and people aren't just trying to build their own little fiefdom or their little empire around their team. I think that's, you know, I think that's really important. And the idea that you embrace the diversity of the businesses you've acquired, rather than try to make them all look like one large conglomerate, makes complete sense. And I'm sure it makes sense to those customers you work with. So you come into the industry with this vision, yourself and the guys from Prime Pulse, and you've been through this process, which has kind of been pedal to the metal the whole time, and you've been going at quite a speed. What surprised you during that time? What was as you expected it to be, and what was unexpected along that route?
I mean, what really surprised me was, you know, in terms of management, I was expecting that we will find a lot of people in the acquired companies which are not, you know, being able to adapt to this very agile and team-oriented kind of system, so that we need finally to exchange them. I was even, you know, in my, you know, deep heart, I was estimating something that we need to change, you know, half of the people over the course of the years. I mean, this was not the case. It seems like that most of even differently educated or socialized managers love to work in an environment like this, where you don't have, you know, this everyday politics that you need to be blame, you know, somebody else, doing some finger pointing, cover your ass, you know, all those kind of things. I mean, many people learn in their, you know, socializing of their personality over the years in big organizations, that's the way to survive. But I was very positively surprised how many people who can behave like this prefer not to behave like this and work environment where you can focus on getting things done together. And that's, I mean, this was one of the very, very positive surprise, I need to say.
So an organization that becomes very goal driven as a result of that, and becomes, you know, I think the sense that I get when I look at the team is there's that passion and creativity and innovation, but there's also that perseverance to see where the finish line is and to you know, to head towards it. And perhaps that's why you've got where you've got to so quickly. Were you surprised by the timeline as well? Did you expect to get there early when you set that 5-year goal?
Yeah. What I also underestimated in a, you know, positive way, by the way, was, I mean, how useful, how positive it is that I can rely on Prime Pulse as a major shareholder. So I was very positively surprised about, let me say, the pace of the M&A team I was able to use. There's an M&A team around Markus Zaller, who also headed, you know, in former times, the M&A team of CANCOM. So, I mean, he is really extremely experienced to getting M&A deals done. So to work together with this very, very small but very efficient team was one of the key success factors. So to bringing together my experts on the business and the M&A experts, you know, who help us to make it happen with all the deal mechanics, yeah. And I mean, it's a very, very small team, but of course they had experienced lawyers in the background, experienced, you know, kind of due diligence experts, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, this team approach then also, you know, beyond the borders of KATEK, together with the Prime Pulse team, was really fascinating. I mean, when I mean, you know, Ramona, our head of marketing, I mean, before, and even before, by the way, the IPO, I had only the communications team, which was 2 people, I mean, from Prime Pulse, and I used them fully. I mean, they worked like hell to help me to make it happen, and I worked with them like they were part of the KATEK team. And only now we have Ramona, and I mean that's fantastic. Without the
leanness of the organization.
Exactly.
No, absolutely.
Leverage effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, like you say, it's people that are working towards objectives, but not, their objective isn't to build as big a department as they can, or, you know, to have a particular title or something like that. It's all about delivering on that vision. So we take that vision and we accelerate it, and we get to the point of reaching the size that you initially talked about. And we've talked about this before, and the importance of scale in terms of buying power, but also being at the table in terms of negotiation. And you've achieved that. And then we get to the point of the IPO, which has been done early, and gives you some fuel to go forward. If I know Rainer, and I think I do, that doesn't make you want to relax and slow down. That makes you want to kind of push harder, go further, keep going. Is the vision any different now? And how does your view of the next steps change because of what's happened in this year?
Yeah. I mean, maybe to understand the next steps, I mean, let me start from the beginning, when we started with the M&A strategy. The strategy was, as you rightly said, Phil, that, I mean, very, very fast, we wanted to get to a decent size in order to be relevant in the eyes of the customers, but also in the eyes of the suppliers. So size was, I mean, everything was, you know, mattered, you know, in the first, let me say, 1.5 years. And also the M&A strategy followed this direction. We need to have a decent size. Then the second part was, okay, now we have a decent size. Now we need to fill certain gaps in order to be able to cover the entire value chain of electronics, from hardware, software engineering, you know this all, up to the after sales services. And I mean, we are still not there where we should be, but I mean, we can offer now every customer the full value chain. This was the second step. The third step was that I had the deep conviction, also by the way, in terms of margins, that I mean, being the electronics partner is important, and that's the key of our business. That's the core of our business. But with all the know-how we are having in terms of electronics, it would also make sense in certain areas like renewables, like e-mobility, like telecare, to go into the broader market of complete solution systems, devices, where electronics, is making a difference. But where you can play out all your capabilities in order to be successful in some of those kind of vertical markets, and that's why we enhanced our capabilities in certain of this very interesting growth markets, like the acquisition of some of the KAKO businesses from Siemens in the renewables area, or the acquisition of Telealarm in the telecare area. So this was the third part. And now, I mean, all of those journeys, they have not yet, come to an end. So this will continue, all of these three elements. But if I now look into the future, I'm looking, the next step, of course, we will be, above 500 million this year in terms of revenues. Even the shortage will not hold up getting there. Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, very clearly, I mean, the next step must be to get a clear path to get to the billion. Because if you have a billion, you are, one of the top 2 in Europe.
And one of the top 20 globally. Yeah.
Exactly. You can also conquer, some rest of the world. So that's very, very clearly the target. And at the same time, I also want to get to the capabilities to more and more being able to serve the really big industrial customers in addition to let me say in ABB or in Honeywell, or I mean those kind of categories where you have multi-billion businesses, where you need another let me say an operating system as an electronics company to serve them in the way they deserve and they expect it. Okay. So that's the next kind of evolution. And the third element, so it's 1 billion being one of the top 2 in Europe. It's having the capabilities to also serve those global multinational companies. And the third one is to further strengthen our capabilities in those mentioned growth markets, like healthcare, like e-mobility. We talked privately more about e-mobility on water, which we think is the next thing, and we want to play a major role there. And of course, also the renewables area. So those are the 3 elements in order for the evolvement of the next couple of years. And I mean, where we are now, I mean, we expected that this would, need something like 5 years. I mean, we got there in 2.5 years. So, I'm a little bit more prudent with my predictions right now, how long this will take. But maybe it's faster than everybody's expecting.
Well, that's right. And if you've got the vision and the path, the speed that it occurs can depend a little bit on market and opportunities and all kinds of different things. You talked about serving global players. Does that mean having a global footprint yourself? When you talk about companies like, Honeywell's or ABB's, they want their product, and more now they want shorter supply chains. They want their product manufactured in region for region. I can see you serving them very comfortably in Europe, but part of the vision going forward is to, I assume, to be able to do something similar in the Americas and perhaps Asia as well.
Exactly. If you look into those, I mean, big, kind of industrial players, what they are expecting from a partner in electronics. I mean, it's first, they expect the full value chain. They expect also the development, somebody helping with the co-development, the prototyping. If you are saying, I mean, we can manufacture PCBAs, they are saying, okay, thank you very much, goodbye, we have enough of that. So that's not the first of all. Then secondly, they expect that you can follow them, that they can follow them wherever they go. So if they decide they have a factory in Asia to serve the Asian markets due to, you know, whatever, they expect you to be able to have local for local. It doesn't need to be the same country, but it need to be the same region, so that also the ways are, you know, much shorter. So that's the second one, and this automatically translates into, I mean, we need to do something in Asia. I mean, we already started in Malaysia, but we need to think about how to, you know, become an even larger footprint there, and you know, the same in, let me say, Americas. Okay. So that's the second one. The third one is, and maybe that's the most complex one, they expect you to have the same, let me say, process and way of working everywhere where you serve them. So you need, all of a sudden, you need something like a global key account management system where you can make sure that, I mean, if they get an offer in, let me say, in Asia, it has the same kind of structure and logic like if they get it in Europe, and also that those people are talking together, so that it happens in a coordinated way. They also expect you that you are able to transfer knowledge, so that if they do something together with you, let me say in France, then they expect you that you are able to transfer the knowledge and do the same for them also in Asia. So this is a completely different mindset, and you need different people there. And the most logic thing would, of course, be to acquire a company or to partner with a company which, you know, already has this kind of DNA. But if not, we need to build it on our own, because if not, you will fail serving those, you know, kind of customers.
Yeah, I think that kind of, you know, best in class, world-class operational structure, you know, the software that allows you and to connect all those. Interestingly, I was looking around on the PrimePulse site and listening to a couple of the videos on there, and the term digitization comes up quite a lot, and that's something they feel very strongly about. And I think that can be part of your strategy to give you additional agility. Is that something that they want in KATEK, and is that something that you see as part of that vision going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. And we are already using, you know, our sister companies in terms of digitalization. I mean, one of the things we decided, for instance, is, I mean, I don't mind if, you know, each and every daughter company has a different ERP system, if all the numbers then, you know, come up to our BI tools and we have full visibility in real time. But I mean, if you want to work together, as a team, you need kind of a unified, let me say, office IT landscape, like Office 365 out of the cloud, Microsoft Teams. I mean, all of those kind of things. And this, I mean, we've done this, you know, for all the companies. Everybody is using the same kind of tool set, so that everybody can communicate together, I mean, perfectly. And this we are doing, or this we've done together with one of the sister companies of the PrimePulse, because we have all the competences there. And of course, also the BI tool, Christoph, our head of purchasing, we are using in order to have full transparency on the demands, on the demand side for our suppliers, and what do they need, in which material category, etc., in real time, which comes from the ERP systems from the different units. I mean, we've realized this on very short notice together with one of the sister companies in PrimePulse. I mean, that's a big advantage many of our competitors don't have, and we will play this out.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it? And I look at where you are now at $500 million in terms of scale, and this very strong sense of being entrepreneurial at the center, and also being entrepreneurial at all of the different facilities. One of the challenges is clearly going to be, if you double in size,
you've got twice as many GMs or MDs to take care of. How do you feel that's going to be a big challenge, maintaining that entrepreneurial spirit, maintaining that kind of speedboat approach when the water's literally full of speedboats?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the $100,000 question, which I just last week discussed with our head of operations, and I mean the answer, or my hypothesis right now, is that we can operate in the way we are operating for a while. For instance, we already consolidated a little bit. So, the former Bebro Frickenhausen together with the Czech, we, merged together with KATEK Brassau.
When it's appropriate.
One larger entity with a kind of unified managing director landscape. And, maybe also in the future there will come more of this, but the basic structure of the speedboats will be the same. So this structure, it now depends heavily on what kind of companies we are going to acquire in the next couple of years. If we continue to acquire companies with, let me say, a size between 20 and 100 million, then I would say, in 2 years from now, when we are at, let me say, 750 million euro, then we maybe need something like a kind of a big discussion about a new setup, which is because we cannot allow that we end up like General Electrics. 1 or 2 decades before, when they had all their entrepreneurial unit, and it was hundreds.
It was chaos.
Yeah, it was chaos, and nobody. This was a bright idea at the beginning, and they were very competitive, and they were better, like Siemens or ABB and the other. They were the benchmark, and now nobody is even talking about GE, because they failed to adapt to the size they had in the new world at a certain point. This will happen with KATEK. So we will, at something like 750 million, we will do kind of a rethinking about the organization. If that's the second option. If the M&A path will get us to a point where we will do a merger with another company of similar size, then everything, of course, is maybe different, and we can work with the KATEK part, in the way we have then, because if we acquire such a large company, and then the M&A path for, let me say, 2 or 3 years is over. I don't need another M&A that now can restart in 2 or 3 years. Maybe some smaller additions, but that's those 2 main options which we have in mind.
Yeah, and I think staying true to your original vision is absolutely key. You had a clear vision at the start. It's got you very successfully to where you are now. Staying true to that vision is really important, because we've seen EMS companies, particularly in the US, grow by acquiring lots of small companies and saying, yep, they're all going to keep their agility, they're going to keep their separate structure. And then a couple of years down the line, suddenly, nope, they've all lost their own identity, and they have to become this single entity. And then they're in a different position. Then they have to, compete with the Jables and the Flexes of this world. And it's a margin sensitive business, and it's maybe not what they want. I think what's really exciting at the moment is you're changing the industry because of your new views, and the industry is changing because the OEMs needed to change, and the industry is changing because governments and supply chain security and all kinds of other things are coming into play. So for me, it's a staggeringly exciting time to be doing what you're doing, and I can see that you're enthusiastic about what's to come, which is, I think it's the key. What are you most excited about of the next part of your adventure?
I mean, I'm always extremely motivated, by learning something. And I mean, the unexpected. I'm looking forward to the unexpected, and then how we deal with it. And I'm sure we find the right way. So that's what I like most about the future. That I don't know anything about the future. I really like this. And I mean, I love Frank Sinatra. So I mean, the best is yet to come. That's my deep conviction, and that's also true, for our industry and especially for KATEK.
Yeah, and I absolutely think you're right, and I think it's a model that not just works for KATEK but works for all your customers as well. So that's where it's really exciting. Rainer, thanks so much for your time. It's always an absolute joy to chat to you, and look forward to the next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phil.